Hey, what's going on? Today I'm going to go over the business that cost me $0 to start but allowed me to save $17,000 before the age of 17. And that's not an exaggeration. It literally cost me $0 to start, and this is something that can be replicated as long as you're willing to get down and dirty. Just a little bit. And this all started with a simple question of how can I possibly earn more per hour? Because growing up in high school in a rural town, I had friends who would work at various jobs at like grocery stores, movie theaters, just your basic teenage jobs, and no one was making more than like $7 or $8 an hour. And I even worked briefly on a farm for $6.25 an hour, but I kept thinking there's gotta be another way to make more money. There's gotta be a third door, as Alex Banayan would say. So what can I possibly do to earn more? And I remember vividly working on this farm one day. I had a 10-hour day, literally carrying buckets across this farm, milking cows, driving skid steers around, picking up cow crap and dumping it and getting crap sprayed in my face. And 10 hours of this, at the end of the day, I got a check for $62.50. And I was like, that was a lot of effort. There's just gotta be a better way. So I was asking myself, what can I do to make even a little bit more an hour? And I made this list of options, and I said to myself, I would literally do anything for more an hour. And that question is what allowed me to start searching and come up with the idea that maybe I could do anything, because I didn't know exactly what people would hire me for. So I made this list of like 15 things on a small flyer, included like dog walking, taking care of people's lawns, basic housework, gardening, this whole list of things. And I said, I'll do literally any of them for $15 an hour. I took that flyer door to door around my neighborhood walking and, talked to neighbors, and I said eagerly, I was like, I will do literally anything for 15 bucks an hour. Give me a shot. I don't care if it's picking up dog poop in your yard, raking weeds out of the lake, literally anything. I will do it for 15 bucks an hour. And some people, I will say, were a little skeptical, like, why should I give this kid 15 bucks an hour? But a lot of people actually ended up hiring me and giving me a shot, and I think the eagerness really is what paid off there. The fact that I was just like pounding home, like, I will do anything, give me one shot, I'll make it work. And once someone did hire me, it was like gangbusters. I was gonna work as hard as I possibly could, because I was making like almost 3 times more an hour than I was making at the farm, and so much more an hour than any of my friends as well. And you might be asking, why would someone possibly hire like a 13 to 15-year-old to work in their yard? And the answer is, there wasn't much to lose. At 15 bucks an hour, I would just tell them, give me a shot, 1 hour to do something. If you don't like what I was doing, don't hire me again. So there's very low risk, and it was insanely cheap. Like if someone were to hire a landscaper to do the same things I was doing, a grown landscaper, I should say, they'd be charging at least 3 times as much as I was charging. So it was low risk, and eventually kind of word of mouth passed around too, as I was working at all these different neighbors' yards, and they're like, hey, this kid actually is working pretty hard. And looking back, I wish that there was a neighborhood kid like me when I was 13 who would knock on my door and work as hard as I did for 15 bucks an hour, because that'd be a no-brainer. Because looking back, I was absolutely busting my butt in these people's yards, not even realizing how hard normal workers work. I was like gangbusters, no break, as hard as I possibly could, didn't matter what I was doing. And I'm sure these people were looking out their windows like, what the heck is going on with this kid? He's like, doesn't take any breaks, he's like out there dying for 15 bucks an hour. But I had no frame of reference, and I just wanted it so bad. And you might be saying, all right, well, this is all fine and good, but how did you possibly do this for $0? And the basic answer there is resourcefulness. Remember the flyers I was telling you about? Well, I made those on Microsoft Word, and I went into my high school's computer lab before anyone was there and printed off like 100 of those. So that was completely free for me, and I know that might not be something that's available to everyone, but that can be done at like a library for just a few cents a page. I knew I didn't need like a website or anything like that. The biggest problem that people have is they get bogged down by all these different things that they feel like they need to do before they start a business or start any kind of side hustle or project or anything like that. And it ends up preventing people from doing it at all. So if something like building a website is going to prevent you from starting for like another month or 2 months or at all, it's better to just start without a website. Start without anything. Just start by talking to people and getting out there. And also, I spent no money because I didn't need any supplies. When I would go to people and say I would do literally anything for 15 bucks an hour, I would say I would do that, but I have to use your tools, because I didn't have any tools. I didn't have any money to buy tools right away. And people were totally fine with that. There was absolutely no problem. And that might be something that only a kid could get away with, but buying some basic like hedge trimmers, rakes, stuff like that can be bought for like under $100. I would walk to people's houses, I'd use their tools, print off stuff for free. It literally cost me $0 except for, a little bit of hustle, a little bit of sweat. And, that's what I would be doing at a job anyways. So why not do that for myself and earn like almost 3 times as much? So the key there is resourcefulness. And I think resourcefulness is something that can be learned. Some people definitely are better at it naturally than others, but I think it can be learned. A little exercise to enable or get better at resourcefulness is to find a problem that you're trying to find a solution to and write down as many possible solutions to that problem as you can, and try and be as creative as you can. And write down everything you think of. It doesn't matter how bad the idea is, how good the idea is. Try to write down like 10, 20 ideas. Doesn't matter how bad they are, cross out the bad ones after you've written them down, but just brainstorm, and you will find other solutions that you don't find right away, on face value, just thinking like, oh, I just can't figure this out, it's impossible. You will find other solutions by sitting down and forcing your brain to dig deep and really try and figure out these problems. It'll take an hour maybe, for some problems, but you will find alternate solutions. Or if you don't find solutions, you might find other avenues of things you can do, which is just another version of resourcefulness. And another crazy thing about this is you might think, as a teenager, I must have just been spending all my time working, but that was not the case. I think I actually probably ended up working less than most of the other kids my age. I still had school, I would work out before school, I had practice after school, so it's not like I had a whole lot of time. But the time I was working, I was just earning so much more than my peers, especially once I really got into it and got into like mowing lawns and things like that, where I was earning like 40 to 60 bucks an hour mowing lawns and using other people's lawnmowers. I had several neighbors that I would mow their lawn, use their lawnmower, and make 40 bucks an hour. I mean, it's an amazing deal and an amazing opportunity for especially young people out there who are willing to hustle. This part's really geared towards young people and using other people's willingness to help them succeed. But if you're older too, there's plenty you can still do. You can start instead of starting for $0, you can start for a couple $100. And I've talked about this before, how you could start a small landscaping company for under $100. It is completely possible. And I know I've said this a lot of times, but there's a huge value in starting small. It forces you to understand all the little things and just learn things like saving money, what it takes to complete a job, what it's like not having a customer pay. And you kind of learn all these things slowly. And the younger you can start and do those things, the better off you are. But starting small really enabled me to do bigger things later. Because things, once you put a lot of effort into them, grow much faster than you think they might. There's no shame in starting a small venture, a one-person venture, with, in the back of your mind, the thought that you're going to do bigger things in the future. Every massive company started with just one customer, and that's something to think about and remember, and something that I can repeatedly tell myself. And this brings me to my final point, which is the importance of saving the money that you earn. I've seen far too many times with contractors of mine or people that I know who start a business, and once they really start making money, they spend it all. I have a perfect example. I had an out-of-state contractor doing moves for me. They struggled for the first couple months to get things going, but then after that, they're making more money than they ever had before. And this was someone who had only worked hourly their whole life. They're making more money than they ever had, And then once the money started flowing in, they were going out for like lobster dinners every night. They were spending all this money on clubbing and doing all these things that they wish they could have done in the past. But they were sacrificing the future of their company in doing these things now. So, you know, they'd make several $100s in a day, and they would just spend half of that. And then 2 weeks later, if there was some kind of minor bind in the business, they weren't able to afford it, then they had to seek out support from other people, and they ultimately ended up doing very poorly and unfortunately had to be replaced with other contractors because it was just simply getting out of control. And the person that replaced them did an amazing job, had a more financial mindset, and it worked out perfectly. But in doing these little things, I lived in a way, I mean, as a teenager, you're not spending much money, but there's things I could have spent money on. I saved everything I possibly could as if I was making no income. And I saved and penny pinched and put it all in my bank account because I knew later on having that money would enable me to do bigger things in the future, and it completely panned out. If I hadn't saved that money at a very young age, it wouldn't have gave me the stability to spend time on working on bigger things and growing them before they're profitable, and I wouldn't have been able to invest anything in bigger things and eventually go on to make millions a year in revenues in other businesses at a relatively young age. So there's a lot of factors here, but a lot of possibility out there in things that you can do to earn money with a very low upfront investment. So if you like this video, I would love if you gave this video a like because it helps the YouTube algorithm a lot and I can spread this message to other people. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. I would really appreciate that. And I hope you have a great day. Thanks.